we only had 4 states that were big supporters. Each state has a state director for alcoholism and drug addiction. Of the 50, only 4 were in recovery. All the 4. All rest were social workers. Yeah. The 4 in recovery bought our scheme. You know, because, but if you were a social worker, you couldn't buy the scheme that the inmates could run the asylum. It's just beyond. If the inmates can run the asylum, what need is there for me with my, you know, WPA or whatever? What do you get as a social worker?
I have no idea.
You know, some degree. But anyhow, this outreach thing, here's an outreach training manual. I've just got one, but maybe you can make a copy and share it.
Okay.
And that gives you an example of what we teach the outreach workers. We bring them into town. We find people like Anna. Anna worked in the office for a couple of years. And then we found that she had a bubbling personality, that she could go out. And each of these outreach workers, we've got 37 outreach workers in Oxford House. And they're all over the country. And the states give us a little money. It costs us $80,000 a year for an outreach worker. That's paying them about $35,000, paying for their health insurance, which is $7,200, paying the Social Security tax, which is another $3,800. That adds up to about $60,000. The other $20,000 is used for mileage, for staying overnight when you go to East Podunk to get a house started. In Washington State, we have 229 houses. We have 5 outreach workers. Now, what that means is, first, those outreach workers are able to find new houses and continue to expand to meet the demand. Second, they're in effect making sure that all the houses stay on track. So one outreach worker can watch about 40 houses. Now, they have tools that help them. Each of those houses belong to a chapter that meets once a month. And the chapter, right at the grassroots, is saying, hey, you know, you've got Charlie living in that house. We think he's drinking because I went to a meeting. Sarah said she smelled booze on his breath and he's been in that house now for a week. If you guys don't do something about it, Inc.'s going to take away your charter. And the chapter has a housing service committee, and they'll go over and visit the house. I've had to work very hard to keep the housing service committees from not being like Hitler's Gestapo.
What are the consequences of taking away their charter? What does that mean in practical terms?
As a practical sense, they become kind of pariahs. We've only revoked 2 charters in our whole 35-year history. In one case, we revoked it because it was out of the way, it was all by itself. We got tired of listening to the landlord going and pleading and cajoling the guys into saying, pay your goddamn rent, and throw out these people we're using. And so we, as a last resort, revoked their charter. In the other case, we revoked the charter because they went co-ed. I should mention that these houses don't work co-ed. The 3rd house we started was a co-ed house. Richard Palmer and I and 2 other guys went to the basement of the house. We recruited 8 women for the 1st floor. It's that house in the park, that White House, had to have them. And then we moved out and we said to the women, vote in 4 more women. We moved out in a month. They voted 4 men in, thinking men would be nice to have around. One of the men was actually screwing 5 of the women. So anyway, from that moment on, we said no co-ed houses. And
what do you mean by co-ed?
Men and women.
Men and women.
Men and women.
Oh, I see, yes.
And the reason they don't work, you know, if you think about it, is that when you've got men and women, there's going to be subgroups created.
Right, yes.
And it's going to bust up the group cohesion.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, the issues are different in early recovery, I think.
Yeah,
The trauma.
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got 400 women's houses and 56 women with children's houses. And the women with children's houses, we've learned that only one woman can get the children.
Yes.
You can't have all the women having children because, first of all, children take up space and don't work.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
We're running into problems there, too, that we have to watch and we have to educate folks on. If you've got a woman's house and one of the women has a 16-year-old boy, you damn well better get rid of that 16-year-old boy. And we kept telling them that, and in Washington State, it wasn't an Oxford house, but it was a school teacher who started screwing some grammar school kid. And we said, there, see, now we told you. And you people in Washington are like that. So, and even worse, in Oregon and a couple other places, we got these men with children's houses. And we really supervise and watch like crazy. Some men's house that suddenly they bring a 10-year-old girl, and then 2 or 3 years later, that 10-year-old girl was 13 or 14. And in a men's house, there's going to be some guy who's going to make a pass at her. So we're not really Puritan, but we say basically no screwing around.
Well, do no
children.
harm, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is we've got 1,458 houses in the country with 12,000 recovery beds. The bad news is there needs to be 70,000 houses. In the United States, there's 25.3 million alcoholics and drug addicts. Last year, 1.7 million got any kind of treatment at all. Of that 1.7 million who got treatment, 60% had been in treatment 3 or more times before. So
It's scandalous.
So you have to do something. And, you know, up until recently, you know, we didn't take methadone, but one of the problems in America is, and the same problems in Great Britain, is that doctors will think there's got to be a magic pill to cure this problem. There is no magic pill. There will never be a magic pill. I drank booze because it made me feel good. And human beings remember pleasure and they forget pain. You know, if you go to the dentist, you have a toothache, 10 minutes after you leave the dentist's office, you forget the pain of the toothache. If you're a woman, you have a child, you know, obviously it's painful, I assume, and yet women have more than one child. And so we're built to forget pain and remember pleasure.